Alright guys, this is my Ryzen 5 3400G running the Unity Heaven benchmark. Hello folks, welcome to Netcruzer Tech. Yes, I got another Ryzen 5, this time with integrated graphics. This is one of the newest chips on the market, the Ryzen 5 3400, and yeah, I found it on Amazon Open Box, which is great, so hopefully it works. We're going to open it up, install it into this motherboard. Now, this project was kind of a couple of months behind actually, because when these chips originally came out, I ordered them from Amazon. And the one that I ordered was supposed to be a 3400G. They sent me a 3200G instead. The whole order got messed up. I had to return it, and then I just decided to wait for these to go on sale. They never did, but I was always watching for an open box return. And here it is. These are really cool because they're the newest Ryzen. Now they're not the 7nm lithography. What they do allow is integrated graphics, which is probably twice as strong as any Intel based chip. So that is excellent. So here we have it, the Ryzen 5 3400. And also you do get an included cooler. And the included cooler that you get is thicker fins than you get on the Ryzen 5 3600. 4-core, 8-thread CPU, but it does have integrated graphics as well. So I'm not going to run a dedicated graphics card in this board. I'm just going to put this chip in, let the chip handle the graphics, and see how well it performs versus my Ryzen 5 3600, which has an RX 580 in it. This board is really good actually. This one has USB-C on board. The other B450 MSI board that I got did not. Also, this one is a micro ATX board, so it's a little bit smaller, one less expansion slot. I do have a Lexar M.2 SSD already installed. We'll get this system up and running. It's ready to go actually. I've got this power supply just kind of sitting here, so RAM's already installed. I've just got some really junky value RAM in here right now. It's 8 gig, 2400. Now since I did buy this CPU open box, I am going to clean off the CPU cooler. Someone did try and clean it. It looks, nah, I'm going to see if I can do better. Cleaning up nicely. Yeah, certainly was not cleaned well enough. On this board, the square on the socket is towards the I/O. I don't recall if my last board was like that, but we've got the CPU here, and we'll install it. I'm just going to give this a quick wipe down with alcohol. Add some thermal compound. That's the one downside to buying a used CPU, is that you would have to have thermal compound on hand. Otherwise, you don't want to just run it raw. You have to have some sort of thermal compound on there, so make sure you have some. Okay, I gotta screw it down. The stock AMD CPU cooler is installed. And we're pretty much ready to go. I've got this old power supply hooked up, and this is an old power supply because it only has a 4-pin PCI power slot on it. It's got the ATX full proper grid array, but it only has 4 pins instead of 8. And I have tested this previously where it works fine. You can run your motherboard with only the 4-pin power connector. There's only a plug on the one side, so you just use those 4 pins. It'll line up great. And that's all you need. It'll be fine. The only reason that this is a larger power plug, as far as I know, is for really power-hungry CPUs, which this one is not, so you don't have to worry about it. All I have to do now is plug in an HDMI cable and short the jumpers to turn it on, because we have no power switch installed. That's the other thing, is when you're testing hardware, you don't need to install it in your case. It's actually better to test it outside of the case first, make sure everything works before you install it in the enclosure. All I have to do is fire it up and we're ready to go, because this storage drive already has an OS on it when I tested the 3200, and I never made a video about the 3200. We're going to try the 3400G right now. Fan spin! That's a Louis Rosman joke if you don't get it, by the way. Fire up the board by shorting out these pins in the middle with this screwdriver, and now it's booted up fine, and it's telling me that it's got past the post and it's decided that it sees a new CPU, so we need to enter setup and configure the BIOS. And it shows that my RAM is counting at the proper speed, so I might be okay. I got to hook up a keyboard though. I don't have one of those hooked up yet. And this works on a B450 board because I did the BIOS flashback. That's where you hook up a USB stick and you can just press the little button that's on the back here, and it'll let you flash the BIOS even if you don't have a CPU or RAM installed. It's a great feature, especially if you're tweaking with RAM timings. If you overcook your RAM and you get it so the system will not boot, you can reset it hitting that button. And it's one of the only motherboards that has it. It's a really, really good feature having this guy here. You install a USB stick in the slot that's closest to the button, you press the button and it will reset or flash your BIOS. There's a bit more to the setup to it. I showed that in my other Ryzen build video if you want to know exactly how to program the USB stick to do that. Got into the default BIOS, I hooked up a keyboard. I'm using this multimedia keyboard. These are really good for doing setups and builds because there's no wires involved. You got a mouse, you got a keyboard, and it just runs on a little USB 2.0 little dongle thing. So these all-in-one keyboards are really good for doing computer setups with no wires, because now I can be way back here and do my setup. For some reason it's locked up on the BIOS and there's nothing weird going on. I was just moving around the tabs, so I'm going to do a quick little reboot here. Alright, we have success in Windows. I didn't even touch the BIOS, all I did was reboot it. So we're ready to test it, make sure everything's up and running. Cinebench right now and watch the temps and stuff. We're gonna run the old Cinebench R15. This is on all defaults, so I'm gonna go into Ryzen Master and turn on the Precision Boost Overdrive, and then we'll see what kind of a score increase we get, but this will be the first run. Default settings, Ryzen 5 3400G. Before the BIOS update, which also increases the boost a little bit, there was an IGSA update to these CPUs, which has increased their performance by about 50 megahertz per core, it seems, just to try and get closer to the boost targets that are on the box. Because that's one thing about the Ryzen chips, is that they're not boosting to their advertised values. Okay, box stock settings, we got an 851 Cinebench in R15. That's not too bad, but out of comparison, my Ryzen 5 3600 gets a 1500 score. We got up to a maximum of 65C, which is no big deal at all. Idling at 30, peaking at 65, that's great. This is also a 65 watt chip, which is very nice. Now I'm going to boot in the Ryzen Master and do the best way to overclock Ryzen chips that I've found is to stay out of the BIOS and do it all through Ryzen Master. So yes, I do want to continue, and we'll get this set up for Precision Boost Overdrive, as well as I want to install the latest Radeon software drivers too, because that'll make the VEGA chipset for GPU in this perform even better as well. We're on OC mode default, and all you have to do to turn on Precision Boost Overdrive is you go into Creator mode and click on Precision Boost Overdrive. This is out all of these settings, but it's on full automatic boost. It'll try and determine what cores are your best ones, which it actually says my best core is Core 4, I believe. And we're going to leave all the other stuff at default for voltages and stuff, and I'm just going to hit apply. And that's it. We're now running an overclock. So what I do is I just go home. We're running an overboost, a Precision Boost Overdrive. That's what they call it. So now we'll go home and we will run the Cinebench again. We're currently boosting to just over 4 gigahertz on all 4 cores. And the max boost that this can do is 4200. After I do the BIOS updates and other Windows updates to this CPU, it might boost even more. It'll probably get up to closer to the 4100 mark, but for now we're going to see what this does for a score. Does it increase or not? I've been playing with Precision Boost Overdrive on my 3600 as well. It's a minor boost, same score, 851. Now that might be a bug in Cinebench. I have ran into that before, where it gives me the same score over and over and over again unless I actually close the program. So let me do that. Now let's rerun Cinebench and see if we get a better score or not. Still only peaking at 65 degrees, which is great. 833, it went down. Weird, it went down. So I have ran into that before as well, where total defaults gives a better score than Precision Boost. Because stock cooler. Precision Boost Overdrive uses thermal headroom, and I have noticed that on a stock cooler, Precision Boost barely makes a difference at all, if not hinders performance. So I'm going to go back to default until I put on an aftermarket cooler. But there's one thing I want to do, which is get it on the internet. This motherboard does not have Wi-Fi. The other Ryzen board I bought also did not have Wi-Fi, but there's a reason for that, is because you end up paying $50 to $100 more for an ultra premium motherboard that has Wi-Fi and stuff built in, when you can just get something like this. This is a little micro adapter that produces Wi-Fi signal, and it works incredibly well. I have tested this on my other desktop, and for this thing to have an AC 1200 signal, works awesome. It even has MIMO, but it doesn't have Bluetooth. For Windows 10, if you have Windows 10 on any kind of a modernish patch cycle, all you have to do is plug it in. There's no drivers, it'll just work. It gets an excellent 5G signal. I'm pretty far away from my router right now. This room is considered an extension of the house, and this wall is super thick, and it's hard for the RF to get in here, but it's getting a really good 5G signal, better than the 2.4 gigahertz. Anyway, works great. I'm already on the internet. I'm going to download all my Windows patches and updates and stuff, keeping it on this BIOS. And then eventually when the new AGISA comes out, I don't know how you pronounce that. Anyway, when the new microcode comes out for the CPUs, we'll do probably another video about that, because I heard there's yet another one coming on top of the patches that have already come out for Ryzen 3rd Gen. And we're downloading updates and stuff. Alright guys, this is my Ryzen 5 3400G running the Unity Heaven benchmark. I've got it for 1920 by 1080. I've got quality set to low, although this looks pretty darn good to me. Anti-aliasing set to 4 times. And it's running at around 20 to 30 FPS. Remember, this is a benchmark. It's meant to stress test it, so playing a game, it'll only be better. You'll be able to turn down the settings on the game to get a playable resolution. So certainly for older titles or for little competitive games, this chip is going to be really good for that. This is a fairly strong GPU in this. Probably twice as powerful as anything that Intel puts in their CPUs right now, and it's baked right into this Ryzen 5 CPU. Pretty awesome. Windows updates and the computer got more stable, and then I went and was looking again at the motherboard manufacturer's website, and look at all these drivers. They just came out yesterday at the time of filming. So yeah, check your motherboard website all the time as well for the perfect drivers for your motherboard that are more up to date than Windows Update usually. Games from a few years ago look great on this Vega 11. This is on the Ryzen 5 3400G integrated graphics. I'm running a Grid 2 benchmark on ultra settings. I do need to confirm the resolution. I didn't quite see that in the settings, but it looks really, really good. Certainly, games are playable on integrated graphics on this chip. It's the strongest integrated graphics available right now on a desktop chip where it's built in. So this was my Grid 2 benchmark. I had everything on ultra settings, and I got a 30 frames a second average, max of 35. But certainly things could be turned down a bit. The heavy hitters that impact your performance could be turned down and still be, you know, you could get a high frame rate experience into the 60s easily. That previous shot I was showing you was actually running in 720p. Now we're running in 1080p high. Looks good to me. Man, that looks good for integrated graphics. This game is from 2012 though. So if you want to get good performance out of integrated graphics, it's in your best interest to play older games on it. Okay guys, this was 1920 by 1080 high, and we got an average frame rate of 46 and a max of 58. So you're really close to that 60 frames a second sweet spot. Awesome.